The smell of sizzling pepper soup and grilled tilapia filled the air as the soft ta jazz music floated through Eden's Place, one of Lagos's most luxurious restaurants. Waiters in crisp white shirts moved gracefully between tables, trays balanced on practiced hands. At the corner of the room, a tall man with a calm smile carried 2 plates of jollof rice and grilled chicken to a couple by the window. "Here's your order, Ma," he said politely, placing the meal before the woman. "Thank you," she replied absent-mindedly, not looking up from her phone. The man bowed slightly, smiling, before walking away. To anyone watching, he was just another waiter. But his name was Tunde Adebayo, the owner of Eden's Place, a restaurant chain known across Lagos, Abuja, and even Accra. No one would guess that the same man who wiped tables and greeted guests was the CEO who signed the paychecks. Tunde had built the restaurant from nothing. 10 years ago, he was a poor boy from Ibadan who washed plates at a local eatery. His mother, a food seller at Bodija Market, used to tell him, "Tunde, no matter how big you become, don't forget the smell of the kitchen that raised you." He never did. That's why, even after building an empire, he still spent 3 evenings a week working as a waiter, watching people, studying them. But his humility had cost him dearly. 3 times, he had fallen in love. 3 times, the women left, the moment they discovered he was just a waiter. There was Anita, who told him she couldn't build a future with someone without ambition. Then Lola, who stopped answering his calls after seeing him serve water to guests. And Chioma, who laughed bitterly when she found out he was pretending to be rich. He had stopped trying after that. Or so he thought. One rainy Thursday, Tunde noticed her. She walked into the restaurant with 2 friends. Not flashy, not loud, just a simple woman in a floral dress and flat shoes. Her name, as he later overheard, was Kemi. When her order was delayed, she smiled at the waiter. "It's okay," she said. "I know you're busy. Take your time." Tunde watched her closely from behind the counter. He saw how she thanked the cleaner who mopped near her table, how she tipped the servers with genuine warmth. He didn't know it yet, but Kemi had planted a quiet seed in his heart that night. For months, she came every Friday with her friends. Sade, a bright-eyed woman with dreams of becoming a chef, and Amara, who always complained about how men these days don't have money. Tunde continued his routine, pretending to be a waiter, watching quietly. He saw how Amara judged people by their shoes, how Sade always encouraged Kemi to go for kind men, and how Kemi herself seemed gentle but uncertain, as if she'd been hurt before. Then one night, he decided to take a chance. He approached their table with a soft smile. "Good evening, Ma," he said to Kemi. "I couldn't help noticing you always come here on Fridays. I was wondering if I could serve you personally next time." Kemi blushed slightly, caught off guard. "Oh, that's sweet," she said with a smile. "Sure." And that was how it began. Over the next few weeks, Tunde and Kemi began talking, not just about food, but life, family, dreams, and the kind of love that lasts. He never mentioned he was the owner. He wanted her to see the man, not the money. And for a while, she did. Until one evening, everything began to change. It was a Saturday night. The restaurant was full, the air thick with laughter and clinking glasses. Kemi walked in unexpectedly, earlier than usual, and saw Tunde carrying plates to a loud table. Her smile froze. She watched as a man in a suit snapped his fingers at Tunde. "Waiter, bring another bottle." Tunde nodded calmly, obeying. When he turned and saw her, her face had already changed. Confusion, shock, and something colder, embarrassment. "Tunde?" she said, voice trembling. "You're a waiter?" He opened his mouth to explain, but she was already shaking her head. "All this time you lied to me? Pretending?" Her words cut through him like broken glass. People were starting to stare. He lowered his tray, his voice steady. "Kemi, please, let's talk about this privately." But she stepped back, her pride stinging. "I can't believe I almost fell for this. A waiter!" Her friend Sade tried to calm her. "Kemi, maybe hear him out." But Kemi stormed out, leaving Tunde standing there. The man who owned the restaurant left, yet looked like the poorest soul in the room. That night, Tunde sat alone in his office, staring out at the city lights. His assistant Kunli placed a hand on his shoulder. "Oga, it's not the first time," Kunli said softly, "but maybe this one isn't over yet." Tunde sighed. "She might be gone for good." Kunli smiled faintly. "Then maybe, sir, it's time for her to see what she threw away." Tunde leaned back in his chair, thinking, not in anger, but in quiet resolve. If she wanted to chase status, he would let her see what true value meant. And in the process, he might discover someone who saw the real him all along. Days turned into weeks, and Eden's place felt quieter without Kemi's laughter echoing through the hall. Tunde kept up appearances, still serving tables, still greeting customers with his calm, polite smile. But inside, a heaviness grew. Kunli, his trusted assistant and right-hand man, watched him closely. Oga, Kunle said one evening as they locked up, you're thinking about her again, Adi? Tunde chuckled bitterly. You know me too well. Kunli folded his arms. You gave her a test and she failed, but maybe she wasn't meant to pass it. Maybe someone else was. Tunde sighed. Maybe. But a part of him still hurt, not because Kemi rejected him, but because he had started to believe that maybe this time would be different. A few days later, fate took an interesting turn. Sade, Kemi's cheerful, kind-hearted friend, walked into the restaurant alone. She looked nervous, clutching a small brown envelope. Tunde noticed her from across the room and went to greet her. Good evening, Ma, he said politely. Long time no see. She smiled warmly. Ah, waiter Tunde. I came to drop my CV. I'm a chef, or at least I want to be. I've been cooking at a small buka in Surulere, but I really admire how your restaurant is run. I was wondering if there's any opening at all, even as a kitchen assistant. Tunde's eyes softened. You love cooking? Since I was a child, she said proudly. My mother taught me that good food is a form of love. He smiled, the same words his own mother once said. Leave your CV, he said. I'll make sure it gets to the right person. Sade thanked him sincerely and left, completely unaware she had just spoken to the owner himself. That evening, in his office, Tunde called Kunle. Bring me Sade's file, he said, and schedule her for an interview tomorrow morning. Kunle grinned. So, the waiter is hiring now? Tunde smirked. Something like that. Meanwhile, somewhere in Lekki, Kemi was trying to move on, or at least pretend to. She sat with Amara in a fancy cafe, scrolling through social media. Can you imagine? Amara said, laughing. All this time, that man was just a waiter? You dodged a bullet. Kemi forced a laugh, but deep down she wasn't at peace. She missed Tunde's calm voice, his gentle manners. Yet pride wouldn't let her admit it. Still, curiosity nagged at her. How could someone so decent be so content being just a waiter? She decided to return to Eden's place. Not to apologize, but to satisfy her curiosity. When she arrived, she wore her best outfit, a fitted red dress and gold heels, determined to show what she had missed out on. To her surprise, she found Sade in the kitchen, wearing an apron and laughing with the other chefs. Sade? She said, frowning. What are you doing here? Sade turned, beaming. Oh, I got hired. Isn't that amazing? Kemi's eyebrows shot up. You're working here? As what? As a trainee chef. The manager said the owner himself approved my application. I couldn't believe it. Kemi blinked. The owner? You've met him? Sade shook her head. Not yet. They say he's very humble. Sometimes he even works with the staff to understand them better. Kemi scoffed. That's strange. Who owns this place anyway? But before Sade could answer, a familiar voice came from behind them. Good evening, ladies. They both turned. Tunde stood there, not in a waiter's uniform, but in a sleek navy blue suit. Calm, confident. The room went silent. Kemi's mouth fell open. Tunde? Sade gasped. Wait, you're the owner? Tunde nodded slowly. Yes, I'm the owner. Kemi's face flushed red with shock and humiliation. But you said you were a waiter. I am, Tunde replied softly, because I never stopped serving, no matter how high I climbed. My work doesn't change my worth, and neither should it change how people treat me. The staff, who had been watching quietly, looked away respectfully. Sade spoke up gently, breaking the silence. That's actually very admirable. Tunde smiled at her, a faint warmth in his eyes. Thank you, Sade. Kemi, however, couldn't contain her frustration. So all this time you were testing me? I was being myself, Tunde said, and hoping someone would see me. Not the title, not the money, just the man. Kemi's lips trembled. I didn't know. You didn't care to know, Kunli interrupted, stepping forward. You saw a tray in his hand and assumed it defined him. The truth hit her like a slap. Tunde turned to Sade. I've read your application. I think you have real potential. You'll start as a junior chef, but if you keep showing passion and creativity, you'll rise fast. Sade's eyes widened. Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you. Tunde smiled. I believe you. As he walked away, Kemi followed, desperate. Tunde, please. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to insult you. He turned to her, his eyes calm but firm. Kemi, the mistake wasn't in what you said. It was in what you valued. She froze. Some people see gold and think it's valuable because it shines, he continued quietly. Others see value in what doesn't need to shine to be true. Then he walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway, surrounded by wealth she could have shared, but never truly deserved. That night, Sade stayed late after closing, helping the kitchen clean up. As she worked, she noticed Tunde quietly sweeping near the counter. You shouldn't be doing that, sir, she said shyly. He smiled. And why not? It's my restaurant, after all. I like to end the day the way I started it, humble. She laughed softly. You're not like most rich men. He shrugged. Maybe that's why I'm still single. Sade smiled faintly, looking at him. And for the first time, Tunde saw something honest, unpretentious, real. The weeks that followed brought change, quiet, steady, and full of lessons. Kemi's world had begun to unravel, while Sade's was just beginning to bloom. At Eden's place, the kitchen came alive every morning before sunrise. Pots clanged, aromas filled the air, and laughter from the younger cooks echoed down the hallways. In the middle of it all was Sade, flour on her cheek, her apron tied loosely, moving from stove to stove with energy and grace. Tunde watched her sometimes from his office window. She reminded him of himself years ago, hardworking, curious, and unashamed of her roots. One afternoon, he called her in. Sade, he said, looking up from a stack of papers, how are you finding the work? She smiled. Challenging, sir, but I love it. The kitchen feels like home. He nodded. That's good. I've been reading customer reviews. They love your new spicy coconut rice recipe. Sade blushed. Ah, thank you, sir. I just tried something my mum used to make. Tunde smiled faintly. Your mum must be proud. She would be, Sade said softly. She passed 2 years ago. The silence that followed was gentle. Tunde understood that kind of loss, the kind that reshapes you quietly. He stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let her memory live through your cooking. Sade nodded, her eyes glistening. But while things were rising at Eden's place, Kemi's life was sinking fast. After her humiliating encounter with Tunde, she tried to distract herself by throwing deeper into Lagos's social scene. She started dating a man named Desmond, a flashy businessman with an expensive car and even more expensive lies. At first, it felt like an escape. Dinners in Banana Island, shopping sprees, parties. But soon cracks appeared. Desmond began using her name to open accounts, asking her to hold small parcels, and taking calls in secret. When police raided his apartment one night, she realized too late. He was part of a fraudulent network. Kemi was arrested too. Though she didn't run the operation, her name was on documents she had signed without reading. She spent 2 nights in a police cell, cold, ashamed, and broken. When she was released on bail, she walked out into the night air and thought about the man she had mocked for being a waiter. The one who had never lied to her. The one who treated everyone, rich or poor, with respect. Tears burned her eyes as she whispered, God, I chose the wrong things. Meanwhile, in Eden's place, good news traveled fast. Sade's dish had gone viral after a food blogger posted about it, calling it the taste of home with a touch of heaven. Customers now came in asking specifically for Chef Sade's special. Tunde decided it was time to reward her. One evening, after closing, he gathered the staff in the main hall. He smiled warmly at Sade. You've shown not just talent, he said, but humility, creativity, and loyalty. From today, I officially appoint you head chef of Eden's Place, Victoria Island branch. The team erupted in applause. Sade covered her mouth in shock. Sir, are you serious? Tunde nodded. You earned it. Kunli whispered jokingly from the back. From buka to boss. Everyone laughed, and Sade wiped away a tear. Later that night, after everyone left, Tunde and Sade sat together, and like the lights dimmed, the smell of roasted garlic still in the air. You could have hired a professional chef from abroad, she said softly. Why me? Because skill can be taught, he replied, but character can't. She looked at him thoughtfully. You really believe that? He smiled. It's the only thing I've learned that never fails. Their eyes met, quietly, naturally, and in that moment, something shifted. Not romance yet, but recognition. 2 souls who had walked through humility and found each other on the other side. A few days later, as Tunde was reviewing accounts in his office, Kunle entered, looking hesitant. Oga, someone's here to see you. Who? Kunle sighed. It's Kemi. Tunde looked up slowly. Kemi? She walked in, visibly thinner, her once polished look replaced with simplicity. Her voice trembled. Tunde, I came to apologize. He didn't speak, only gestured for her to sit. I was wrong, she said, tears filling her eyes. I thought money defined worth. I looked down on you, on the man who treated me better than anyone else ever did. Tunde's face remained calm, unreadable. What happened, Kemi? She took a deep breath and told him everything. Desmond, the fraud, the arrest. By the time she finished, she was crying. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I just needed to say I'm sorry. You were right. Character is what matters. For a long moment, Tunde said nothing. Then he stood. I forgave you a long time ago, he said quietly, but I hope you also forgive yourself and learn from it, she nodded weakly. I will. I just hope someone gives me a second chance. He looked at her, not with anger, but pity. Life always gives second chances, Kemi. It's what you do with them that counts. That evening, as she left the restaurant, she paused by the window. Inside, she saw Sade laughing with the staff, Tunde standing beside her, not as boss and employee, but as equals. Kemi smiled sadly. She's what I could have been, if I had seen with my heart instead of my eyes. Then she walked away, this time towards a quieter, humbler life. Inside, Kunle turned to Tunde. Do you ever regret it, testing people like that? Tunde shook his head. No, the test isn't for them, Kunle. It's for me, to remember what kind of man I want to be. Kunle chuckled. And what kind of woman you need by your side? Tunde smiled faintly. That part? I think I'm beginning to see clearly. His eyes drifted to Saad, who was plating one last dish with care and pride, the same way he used to when no one believed in him. Months passed. Under Said's leadership, Eden's place grew more alive than ever. The restaurant became the talk of Lagos, not just for its food, but for its heart. Every dish told a story, every staff member felt valued, and every customer walked out smiling. And at the center of it all stood two people. Tunde, the humble owner who never stopped serving, and Sade, the young woman whose dreams were finally taking flight. But something deeper was quietly brewing between them, something beyond food and business. It began with small moments. When the power tripped one night during a busy dinner rush, Sade didn't panic. She grabbed a lantern, kept the kitchen running, and even sang softly to calm the staff. When she noticed a junior waiter struggling, she didn't scold. She helped carry trays herself. Tunde watched it all with admiration. In her, he saw the same values his mother once taught him: humility, strength, compassion. And though neither of them said it out loud, something unspoken passed between them every time their eyes met across the dining hall. One Friday evening, after closing time, Sade found Tunde sitting outside the restaurant, watching the city lights reflect on the water. Long day? She asked, sitting beside him. He smiled. The best kind. The kind that reminds me why I started all this. She tilted her head. Why did you start it? Tunde sighed softly. When I was younger, I worked for a man who treated his staff like tools. I promised myself that if I ever had my own restaurant, everyone would feel like family. Sade smiled warmly. You kept that promise. He looked at her, his voice quiet. With people like you, it's easy to keep. The air between them grew still, soft, meaningful. Sade looked away shyly, her heart beating faster. But just when peace seemed certain, news from the outside world found its way in. One morning, Tunde received a letter. It was from Kemi. In it, she wrote, I'm rebuilding my life, working at a small catering business. I wanted to thank you, not for forgiving me, but for teaching me what humility looks like. I don't expect your friendship, but please tell Sade she inspires me. I watch her videos online, and I see what true grace looks like. I wish you both happiness. Kemi. Tunde folded the letter gently and smiled. She's learning, he murmured. Kunle, who stood nearby, chuckled. God has a way of humbling us before he lifts us. Tunde nodded. Yes, and maybe that's the real reward. Weeks later, Eden's Place hosted its 5th anniversary gala, an elegant night filled with music, lights, and laughter. Celebrities, politicians, and food critics gathered to celebrate the restaurant that had become a symbol of excellence and humility. Sade wore a long emerald green gown, simple, yet stunning. Tunde, in a sharp black suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. During his speech, he walked up to the microphone and said, 5 years ago, this was just a dream, built by faith, sweat, and love for people. But tonight, I want to acknowledge someone who reminded me what this place truly stands for. He turned towards Sade. Sade, your kindness, your creativity, and your humility have not just improved this restaurant, they've changed me. The crowd murmured softly. Tunde smiled and continued, many people chase success to be seen, but you work to serve, and that's what makes you priceless. Sade's eyes filled with tears. The audience applauded warmly. After the event, when the lights had dimmed and the guests had left, Sade found Tunde again, standing quietly by the kitchen. Why did you say all that? She asked softly. Because it's true, he said, and because I wanted you to hear it before the world did. She smiled, shy but glowing. You really believe in me that much? Tunde took a slow breath. More than you know. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, gently, he reached for her hand. When I started this journey, I thought love was about finding someone who looked perfect beside me. But now I know. It's about finding someone who stands beside me when I'm not perfect. Sade's eyes glistened. Tunde? He smiled faintly. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me one thing, that you'll never stop being you. She nodded. Only if you promise never to stop being the waiter who owned it all. They both laughed softly, and in that laughter, pure, unforced, something beautiful was sealed. 1 year later, a new branch of Eden's Place opened in Abuja, co-managed by Chef Sade and Mr. Tunde Adebayo. The sign above the door read, Eden's Place, where service is wealth. As the crowd clapped at the grand opening, Tunde whispered to Sade, from waiter and dreamer to partners. She smiled up at him, and from stranger to soulmate. They stood side by side as the ribbon was cut, a quiet testimony to the truth they had both lived. That status fades, money shifts, but character and love endure. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is that true success is not measured by wealth or titles, but by humility, integrity, and the ability to see people for who they truly are. Sometimes, the people we overlook are the ones carrying the biggest dreams and the purest hearts. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that touch the heart and teach real-life lessons. Until next time, this is Kukuruku Tales, where every story reminds you that love, humility, and character will always win.